We'll call to order this meeting of the Coffeyville City Commission for Tuesday, January 28th, 2025. Melissa Carter will call roll.
Commissioner Edwards.
Here.
Commissioner Hendricks.
Here.
Vice Mayor Van Oster.
Here.
Commissioner Faulkner.
Here.
Mayor Maples.
Here. We will now have our invocation by Pastor Mark Wilson. Please stand.
You bow your hearts with me. Our Father God, a lot of times when we come to you, we give you sort of a laundry list of things that we need and want. But tonight, in this wonderful meeting, business, the legislature, Lord, I just thank you that we have you, that you came to be a Savior for us, a Messiah, that you came to redeem us and call us to your own. And we rejoice in that. We thank you for all the business being taken care of tonight. We do appreciate the wisdom, the innovation, the recreation, Lord, in our community. We're very thankful for that. But Lord Jesus, I read in your word today that even you put up a sigh, even as you were healing a man of deafness and unable to speak clearly. Lord, you sighed. Many tonight maybe are sighing inside, maybe groaning. And I ask that during this meeting, maybe you would speak to us and that we might be drawn closer to you, even in this business meeting. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Mark.
You're welcome.
We will now have a review of our agenda.
I will move to amend the agenda to add a special presentation of life-saving awards to the members of our Coffeyville Fire Department and to remove the resolution R-25-12 from new business.
Second.
Motion is made by Vice Mayor Van Oster, seconded by Commissioner Edwards to amend the agenda to add the special presentation of life-saving awards to members of the Coffeyville Fire Department and remove resolution R-25-12 from new business. Commissioner Hendricks.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Van Oster.
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
Mayor Maples.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
We will now have our consent agenda, which includes the City Commission meeting minutes for Tuesday, January 14th, 2025. Our 2025 appropriations ordinance, number AO-25-0102, in the amount of $4,127,560.51.
I have nothing on the minutes.
I have
Does
nothing on
anyone-
the minutes.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Just as a reminder to those present, when we vote to approve this consent agenda, the appropriations, we're not voting to approve the expenditure of funds. This commission sets the budget. The money is distributed appropriately to the various departments by our city manager and finance director in accordance with the desires of the commission, and then we trust them to spend that money in accordance with the goodwill of the public in this commission. So what we are doing is we are recognizing and approving the expenditures of those funds previously authorized. And from time to time, if something comes up, some large amounts, that's why they are mentioned.
Go ahead.
Thank-
All right. Okay, I have some highlights from our appropriation ordinance. We have Ashland Tree Expert Company, $18,236.70. We have Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors, a couple of contractual agreements we have with them, and they amount to $13,588.75, and those have to do with be bond advising. We have cross-discipline engineering, pay number 28 for the substation upgrade, $2,262. We have D.E. Ladden Public Finance. That is our 19th payment that we are making on the golf cart lease that we approved over a year ago, and we have several more years to go on that for a total of 5 years. That amount was $2,240. We have DLT Solutions. Those are AutoCAD renewals for 2025. $2,344.87 for electric and engineering. We have emergency fire equipment in the amount of $9,777.51, and that is the repair and maintenance for a couple of our storm siren equipment that have been a little overdue, I believe. Is that right? In getting those maintained, so we're up to date with those pretty well now. Is that correct?
Yes, they're mostly up to
Okay.
date. I think there's still a little bit of work that needs to be
Okay.
done.
We have Grand River Dam Authority, $2,930,376.24. We have Hawkins Incorporated for water, wastewater, chlorine, $15,125.27. And that is in conjunction with the contract that we have with them, and they bill out accordingly during the year. We have Highlight Airfield Services, payment number 2 for the marking out at the airport, $45,541.89. We have the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, the principal and interest for water, wastewater on the bonds, $17,246.34. We also have our fourth quarter of 2024 water fees to the Kansas Department of Revenue in the amount of $11,754.95. We have Kansas Municipal Utilities, our defensive driving training for various departments, and that in the amount of $2,300. We have KMGA Gas Supply Operating Fund. This is the fuel gas purchase of $161,446. We have Olson Associates payment number 11 for a transformer replacement, and this is their services, $29,371.26. Republic Services, we have residential trash from during the month of December, $40,064.07. Solutions North Bank, $15,000, and that was giving to 3 individuals, $5,000 each for our first-time home buyer program that we offered. Southwestern Power Adjustment, $12,542.48. Those was the energy purchase firm. We have Swindell Excavation. Those were for the 13 structures that we last approved to be demolished, $112,400. And then we also had Worldwide Diesel Power, payment number 1 for the 18K, 24K maintenance out at the electric plant, $160,539.60. And our payroll was $386,486.14. That's it.
I will move to approve items 1 and 2 of the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Motion is made by Mayor Maples, seconded by Commissioner Faulkner to approve items 1 and 2 of the consent agenda as presented. Vice Mayor Van Oster.
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
Mayor Maples.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Commissioner Hendricks.
Aye.
We have the 2025 appropriation ordinance number AO-25-02A for Ishams and Lieberts in the amount of $4,056.23.
I move to approve item number 3 of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion is made by Commissioner Faulkner, seconded by Commissioner Edwards to approve item 3 of the consent agenda as presented. Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
Mayor Maples.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Commissioner Hendricks.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Van Oster.
Abstain.
We will now move on to comments from the public. Any citizen desiring to address the commission shall be recognized, advance to the podium, state his or her name and address for the record. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes unless extended by a vote of the majority of the commission. The commission does not hear matters involving litigation or city personnel. The commission does not take action on subjects not on the agenda unless unusual or hardship conditions exist. Citizens may address the commission on agenda items as they are brought to the floor. Do we have any comments? Okay, we will move on to regular agenda items. Our first item is public hearings, special presentations, and proclamations. We have the life-saving awards presented to members of the Coffeyville Fire Department. Fire Chief Mike O'Connor and Ben Brubaker will present the awards.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, if you'll come down to the podium to read, those recipients, if they'll come up and stand here in front of the dais.
On August 28, 2023, at 12:47, the Coffeyville Fire Department was dispatched to 701 Hibbard for a reported structure fire. Engine 3 and Engine 1 responded with 5 personnel: Captain Pete Caricio, Lieutenant Josh Meekum, engineers Caleb Horn, Jimmy Bradshaw, and firefighter Brennan Harp. While en route, dispatch informed the responding units that an occupant had jumped from a second-floor window of the apartment. Upon arrival, E3 found a 2-story wood-framed multifamily dwelling with heavy black smoke coming from the second-floor apartments. Bystanders indicated there were possibly more people inside the building. Engineer Horn and firefighter Harp entered the apartment to conduct a primary search. In the southwest corner bedroom, they found an unconscious female victim. Lieutenant Meekum entered the apartment while Engineer Bradshaw began stretching and charging the attack line. Together, Engineer Horn, Lieutenant Meekum, and firefighter Harp removed the victim from the apartment and passed her care to CRMC EMS personnel. The 4 members of A shift then conducted another search to ensure there were no other victims. No additional victims were found and the fire was extinguished. The female victim was later transported to a burn unit in Tulsa. Thanks to the swift and decisive actions of these responders, she survived and is alive today. I would also like to personally thank the EMS crew and officers from the Coffeyville Police Department who assisted. As you can imagine, there are many moving parts in a chaotic incident like this day's events. It was truly a team effort, and I could not be more proud of the 5 individuals standing here this evening. Thank you.
Commissioners, if you'll come down too, we'll have a picture here. Might need to double in a little bit here. Just sideways.
Pete, you don't get a microphone. Good job, guys.
We will now move on to old business. Which will be the second reading of ordinance S-25-01, an ordinance rezoning 3408 West 8th Street in the city of Coffeyville, Kansas from R1 Single Family Residential to R4 Multifamily Residential. Have any questions or comments?
No questions.
No questions? I will move to approve for second reading of ordinance S-25-01 as presented.
I'll
Second.
second.
Motion is made by Vice Mayor Van Oster, seconded by Mayor Maples to approve second reading of ordinance S-25-01 as presented. Mayor Maples.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Commissioner Hendricks.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Van Oster.
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to new business. We have ordinance S-25-02, a home rule ordinance of the city of Coffeyville, Kansas relating to Coffeyville Regional Medical Center. City Manager Ben Brubaker will make comments. Garth Herman with Gilmore Bell, Brian Lawrence and Monty Kaufman with CRMC will be here.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just as a way of quick introduction to this item, this has been put forward together with a lot of collaboration and communication between the city and the hospital, both, I think, mutually benefiting, with the ultimate goal of trying to help CRMC be as successful as it can. So with that, as you mentioned, we have some visitors here with us that will explain a little bit more. Garth.
Thank you, Ben. Garth Herman with Gilmore and Bell, the city's bond counsel. As Ben mentioned, the reason for this home rule ordinance is really the ongoing kind of collaborative relationship between the city and Coffeyville Regional Medical Center, Inc., the corporation who currently operates the medical facility itself. The background for this home rule ordinance is based on discussions between the city and the corporation. They have determined that it's in the best interest of both of those entities and the continuing viability of the hospital to formally dissolve the city's ownership of the hospital and the hospital facilities, and to transfer ownership of those facilities over to the corporation itself. Corporation currently obviously operates, manages, and maintains those facilities. The purpose of this would be to transfer the formal ownership from the city over to the hospital corporation as well. In order to do that, based on discussions with the city attorney as well as the hospital's attorney, we went through and looked at the statutes that apply to the CRMC facility itself and how it was originally incorporated. Those statutes actually provide the method to create the hospital, but they're silent on how to actually dissolve and terminate that hospital relationship. In the absence of statutes that tell a city specifically you can do something or you cannot do something, there's what's called the Home Rule Amendment that kind of fills those gaps for cities. So the Constitution of the state of Kansas was amended back in the 1960s to provide home rule power to cities throughout the state. And in essence, what the home rule power says is that if there is a law that applies to everybody equally, then that is the law for your city. However, if there are laws that don't apply to all cities, but they do apply to you, then you can change those laws by going through a formal process. A third option is if the law is just silent for an action that the city wants to take, then you can still rely on that home rule power in order to fill the gap and in order to basically operate your city still within the bounds of the law, but in the way that best suits your citizens and your community. That's what this home rule ordinance does, is so there is not a law that directly relates to how a city would dissolve its hospital, and there is not a law that really deals with how to transfer hospital property from the city to a nonprofit corporation. So in the absence of those laws, this home rule ordinance provides the authority using that constitutional power to fill the gap. And so if passed, what this home rule ordinance would do is it would do a couple of things. The first is that it would formally dissolve the Coffeyville Regional Medical Center as a city hospital. The hospital is still going to exist. It's just not going to be a city-owned facility anymore. In conjunction with that, the hospital board of trustees is currently appointed by the city to help manage the hospital. Since it is no longer a city-run hospital, there's no longer a need to have that city-appointed board of trustees to be in that management role. So with the dissolution of the hospital itself, the Board of Trustees would likewise be dissolved due to the fact that their role is no longer needed. The second main thing that this does is it authorizes the city, working with city staff and hospital staff, to work on the actual transfer documents, to authorize the transfer of the property and assets of the hospital facility itself from the city to the corporation, so that the corporation at the end of the day will be the title owner of the hospital itself and the assets therewith. As most of you know, over the years, the city and the hospital have had a very good relationship. They've worked together on multiple bond issues using the city's Public Building Commission in order to make improvements to the hospital facility itself. The city has also gone out to its electors in order to have votes on imposing sales taxes to help the hospital and to provide healthcare services to the citizens and the community. This adoption of this home rule ordinance and this transfer of property from the city to the hospital, it won't change any of that. So there is currently an existing sales tax in place where the city of Coffeyville provides resources to Coffeyville Regional Medical Center to help with the provision of healthcare. That sales tax remains in place. Its purpose and its intent will remain in place as well. This will not affect that at all. So, with all that being said, I'll pause for any questions, and if there's anything more hospital-specific related, I may turn that over to the folks back here behind me, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Question.
Yes.
You mentioned corporation, but won't ownership actually reside with the board of directors?
Well, so the board of directors is the governing body of the corporation, so it's similar to when the city of Coffeyville owns something. It's titled in the name of the city of Coffeyville. Likewise, in this case, the property would be titled in the name of the corporation and the corporate name. The corporation, though, is directed to act by its own board of directors.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
And commissioners, I've served on the board of trustees. Some of you may have as well, but during the time I was on the board of trustees, start to finish, those meetings usually lasted about 60 seconds, literally. I mean, fastest board meetings in the world. So it only makes sense that we transfer ownership to the corporation.
Just a question. The corporation, if it ever were to happen in the future, that it somehow came undone or dissolved, then what?
Part of the discussions that we're having on those transfer documents themselves, that will formally transfer ownership of the facility to the corporation. There have been some discussions about some sort of a, let's call it reversionary right, that's put into those where for some reason, if the hospital, no longer function as a hospital, or if something like what you're talking about happened, then what we're talking about is that there may be some way to build into those documents the right of the city to reacquire those assets to make sure that they will continue functioning, as a provider of health care for the citizens.
If I could jump in too, and Brian may, as I stumble through this, may have to correct me here, but nearly the same thing that would happen today if this corporation, failed. The city does not own it. It is a nonprofit corporation. So the specific aspect here we're talking about is that original 1949 portion of the building that the city owns. The building that is currently being constructed, the city has no ownership of it. Some of the other
Correct.
grounds around that, the city has no ownership of. So if the corporation failed, really the only relationship there is the building that we're talking about. And I think if we go and talk about the viability of that building in the future and the condition it's in.
You mean the 49?
Yes, the
Well,
49 building.
okay, let me rephrase my question.
Okay.
in that 1 in 1,000 chance or 1 in 10,000 chance that the hospital stopped operating. Yes, it's a nonprofit corporation. Yes, it may seem like it has no relationship with the city, but it will become the problem of the city. It would be. It'd be an empty building sitting there. It becomes our problem. I'm just asking, then what? You always need a contingency for something we never think will happen and never should happen and we never want to happen. But the what if? Is there going to be something in there where that it would just revert to the city? I'm just asking.
Not their
Start thinking
property.
about that now.
Not their property. So again, if we, I don't want to work in a lot of hypotheticals because we could come up with a lot of scenarios, but where the hospital is going and what they're converting into in the new buildings are not ours.
I know that.
Their own.
That's
So
not what I'm asking.
our problem, what would happen? Well, it's a corporation that has an ownership of a building, so that board would have to decide how to
It would be no different than
dissolve
any
or
other
sell,
corporation
and maybe
going
the
out.
city wants
Yeah.
to jump in and attempt to buy. The difference here, like you look at Independence and the age of that hospital when it went versus the brand new facilities they're going to have, value would be completely different. But the city's problem, I guess maybe that's really we're talking about the transfer of that one building, not the rest
I know
of the
that's not what
property.
I'm asking. We'll talk later.
Keep asking. We want to make
We'll talk
sure, and the
later.
public's listening.
But it wouldn't be any different than any other corporation going out
I'm
of
just saying, if the
Coffeyville.
corporation dissolves, there's nobody left to make a decision to transfer, say, the whole lot, the whole block, and the new building across. Again, I'm talking 100 years from now. But something we hope never will happen, not going to happen.
Yeah,
But it could.
I would assume, Paul, that a corporation that fails, there are certain steps of whatever remaining authority is there that has to go through if it's bankruptcy and sell.
Yeah, that's
if
what I
it's-
mean. The
Yeah.
building's there, but it could become financially insolvent. The
And it would be an empty building.
corporate, yeah, and then it becomes our problem.
No,
And
yeah.
if you don't think
No.
it will, it will. It would. We
Well,
can
there
say
there
it's
are
not
lo-
our problem.
there
but
are
it would
lots
be.
of buildings in town that are dilapidated and gone,
Yeah,
and
but
you're
they're
right.
not
We-
a giant hospital on a whole city block.
Right. But now, are you
Well-
referring to the 1949
We've got some
building,
old
though, or the
schools.
new one they're
Yeah.
building?
The whole
do.
thing, everything.
You do. It's no different than any
Yeah.
other corporation.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yes.
asking
If in 100 years it failed, yes.
No, I'm just asking if all of a
But-
sudden, because of government politics, insurance, medical, became financially insolvent, then what?
Then we'd have an empty building.
And then I ask, then what? But, okay. I'm just wondering if there's any contingencies in place for the, just in case.
Could- Maybe we need to speak to the ownership out there and what specifically we're talking about. Because the what then for any of their property today doesn't matter to us outside of it would be empty and we'd want to fill it. So are you specifically asking about the 1949
No.
and that piece?
No.
So you're saying,
The whole
never
thing.
mind that, pretend it's gone, it's just a
Yeah.
vacant piece of land.
Right.
What do we do with the vacant piece of land?
No,
Okay?
we'll talk later.
Okay. I'm sure that Brian would make himself available even for a phone call
I'm
to
guessing
try
Brian
to.
gets what I'm saying, but we'll talk
Actually,
later.
this kind of falls into the category of, I used to call it crystal balling and catastrophizing. So we'll let it go.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
so,
Move to approve first reading of ordinance S 2502 as presented.
I'll second.
Motion is made by Commissioner Edwards, seconded by Vice Mayor Van Oster to approve the first reading of ordinance S-25-02 as presented. Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Commissioner Hendricks.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Van Oster.
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
Mayor Maples.
Aye.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
We now have Resolution R-25-13, a resolution to authorize the purchase of a trailer-mounted core drill from Core IT Diamond Tools for the Public Service Department. Deputy Director of Public Works Thomas Osborne will make comments.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. As a part of the direction that we received both from the citizens as well as the City Commission on making the city's transportation needs a priority, one of the things and tools that we do not currently have at the city is a way to truly analyze our pavement, especially its thickness. So we want it, when we go to do those street projects, we want to make sure we're doing the right type of project on that particular street. We don't want to sit there and say, okay, we're going to mill off 4 inches and there's only 5 inches of asphalt. Then you got a bigger problem when you go try to put that back. So one of those, that key piece of equipment is a core drill machine. We have came and asked for this before. Potentially, you might remember last year. It was not this exact machine. It was a standard standalone, wheeled it around. You have to add a bunch of stuff to it to be able to get to this. It was never purchased. It got dropped off the side of wherever and never got picked up. But it is something that we desperately need to be able to do that pavement analyzation, as well as to be able to truly plan those future street transportation projects. We looked throughout a couple of different locations, as well as we had the Montgomery County crews came down and did some core drilling with their setup, and we were looking at it and see what it would take to try to maybe build our own. So we pieced those together, as well as looked at just buying one, and came up with the best solution that we feel would be to work for the city of Coffeyville would be this what this trailer mounted that we have proposed here. Happy to try to answer any questions.
Commissioners, specifically with the road projects in 2025, we came in and made some guesstimations, if you will, on what it was going to take to replace a lot of those roads. And as we went in further, we learned what was underneath those roads. This piece of equipment can detect what's underneath as well, right, Thomas?
So,
this
yeah,
isn't
so
just drilling.
What this does is it'll actually take a core. So we actually have a bunch from when we counted it. They're sitting on my desk downstairs, and so we can actually pull a section of that pavement out, and we can see its thickness, see how far down the asphaltenes have grayed out, and then we can actually go from there and kind of see what the base is underneath that. So we can make that decision on, okay, do we have enough base here to do just...
So the mill overlay, does it need to be full
full
reconstruction?
depth.
And that's what we found with a lot of our 25 is
Yeah, so
we had to go full reconstruction.
So on the 2025, we had sections that were 2.5 inches, so they can't really do much of a mill and overlay on that. We also, of course, found a lot of spots where there were a lot of shoving from trash trucks. Again, it goes back to, you got 2 inches of asphalt on probably maybe about 6 inches of base, so there wasn't a whole lot there. So that it did change from, those projects are changing to a full reconstruct on all of those.
How many bids did you receive?
So we went out and did price quotes matching on several different, including, like I said, we went out and I put together pricing to put together a trailer by ourselves, and this came in, all of them came in about the same price. We looked at this as being the best option for the city of Coffeyville. It has some features on it that we would not really be able to build into our own very easily. So it's like a lot of custom sizing of stuff that makes it a more viable versus us trying to get a much larger unit.
So you're saying from a bid standpoint, there was only one received, and that was from Corrit?
I have several downstairs. We just pulled price quotes. We didn't do bids because nothing's apples to apples when you start looking at this type of
You asked for
specialty
quotes.
equipment. Yes.
So yes, we got several quotes. This is the
Yeah.
one that we have up for
Okay.
recommendation.
Not necessarily bids, yeah, I get
Yeah,
it.
yeah. We pulled quotes on this because of it's a specialized equipment and nothing's really truly apples to apples.
So Corrit is the company that makes, they're not the reseller or dealer.
Correct,
They're
yeah.
the company that makes it.
Yeah,
They're the
company that makes
manufacturer.
it.
Okay, how long have they been in business?
Quite a while. And the Corrit is actually the one that built, as the Montgomery counties, they have their drill rig, but they
Yeah.
built their own trailer and setup. And it works
And I'll
works
tell
very
you,
well.
you'll have to buy replaceable tools like the drill bits and
Yep, you can,
things that wear out.
those are standards,
Okay.
pipe thread on and off, so we can get those just about anywhere.
Okay, I'm just
Yeah,
asking.
they're nothing proprietary to their particular bits. We had them priced
Okay,
full set,
good.
so we just had everything together.
We just get into this sometimes of,
Yeah.
we can't
Specialized.
find parts for this maker because they went out of business and won't service anymore, then we buy a new one. make sure that this company's been in place for a while
Yes,
and
they have.
will be in the future.
Looks like they've been around since '58.
Good.
58.
Yeah.
66 years. If there's no other questions, I will move to approve Resolution R-25-13 as
Second.
presented.
I'm sorry, who was the second? Motion is made by Vice Mayor Van Oster, seconded by Commissioner Faulkner to approve Resolution R-25-13 as presented. Commissioner Hendricks.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Van Oster.
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
Mayor Maples.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas.
We now have a resolution R-25-14, a resolution to authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute a legal services agreement with Daniel Heath Lamson for services as a public defender. City Attorney Paul Kreitz will make comments.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Don't have a lot to add to the staff report. We're proposing that Mr. Lamson replace Mr. Gossard, who decided to retire from his post as the city's public defender here recently. He was thinking about coming back, but ultimately made the decision to step down. So we thought about who to hire in his place. Mr. Lamson's name came up. I would have liked to hire somebody local, but there just isn't anybody, unfortunately. One of the attorneys is our judge, of course, and Mr. Schneider would not be interested in this kind of work. So we're left with looking for an out-of-towner, and Heath is going to be the traffic public defender, so he'll be over in Coffeyville occasionally anyway, and he's a good lawyer, energetic. He's very experienced and will be a suitable candidate for this position.
Where does he reside?
Sedan.
Okay.
Sedan. We're going to try to structure it where he's only coming over once a month, except for trials. We have arraignment dockets twice a month, and then trial dockets once a month. So he'll be over here 1 or 2 times a month. I think that's all I had to say.
Okay. I will move to approve Resolution R-25-14 as presented.
I'll second.
Motion is made by Vice Mayor Van Oster, seconded by Mayor Maples to approve Resolution R-25-14 as presented. Vice Mayor Van Oster.
That's it.
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
Mayor Maples.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Commissioner Hendricks.
Aye.
We now have the city manager's report.
Good evening. A few things I want to go over this evening. First one is a lot of talk and concerns in the community about those who may be illegal immigrants here in the city, and what is the city going to do, and what does the change in our president mean for us. And so I just wanted to briefly touch on that. If anybody wants to hear directly from the chief, he was actually on the radio this morning. You can get onto their Facebook page and hear his version of that. A couple things, I've got a letter from the Department of Justice where they're just giving a nice reminder about the city's obligation when it comes to law enforcement to essentially support federal agencies that come through on anything immigration. When it comes to what our chief is seeing is really what they're going after is those hardened gangs, hardened criminals. There's not a round everyone up that they can find. There's nothing like that. We don't anticipate that happening, especially in a small community like ours, right? They're really going after the things I think are most impactful when it comes to criminals on the streets that may not have U.S. citizenship. So we are not going to the schools. We're not going to go be looking for people, rounding people up. We're going to follow our standard protocol, which does already exist. A few things on that protocol. So I've gone through and brought myself up to speed on this with help from our chief. ICE has a website explaining how their detainers are issued and used, and basically the website is saying we're going after that top level, as I mentioned. Also to note, when it comes to traffic stops or traffic violations, we will also continue to do as normal. There is a link from KBI, Kansas Bureau of Investigation, all about biased policing and how we can't do that, especially in our state. And so we will not be out there targeting individuals for what they look like and making assumptions. We especially don't want to do that if you pull someone over based on what they look like and they happen to be a U.S. citizen. You get into major other violations. So that standard process of those who, for example, get a DUI, run a red light, run a stop sign, going through the civil process. If there is then detainers from ICE for larger things, other agencies would take over on that. But there is no action, there's no major change that the City of Coffeyville Police Department is out actively doing based on our change in our president.
So how many, in the state of Kansas, Mr. Kreitz, how many DUIs does it take to register a felony?
3, depending on the timing. 3
Okay.
within 10 years, essentially.
In that circumstance, would that trigger someone being sent away from our community? Because I look at Mugshot Monday, and I mean, the pattern on Mugshot Monday of who's being cited for DUI in our community is very clear. There is a pattern there. Now, I can't speak to whether those people are that are getting these DUIs. Many times, multiple DUIs in a short period of time are citizens or not. As a citizen of this town, I would just like to know that if they get a third DUI, at that point, they're not going to be around anymore. I mean, I would prefer that in Kansas they go away, and maybe they do. I've never had a DUI.
And that's happening, yeah, to some degree.
Do they go to prison typically anyway after a third DUI?
We've had several in court that they don't show up, and then we're advised that ICE has picked them up
Okay,
and they're deported.
very well.
I can't say that's happening every time, but it's happening.
Yeah. I'm not saying I want to set up blockades or anything. I've had family members that I've lost to people from, through drunk driving accidents, so it's kind of a little bit of something I kind of pay attention to. But, I just kind of was curious if there was going to be a change in procedure, and I appreciate the answer.
Something else that happened today is a memorandum came out from the federal government that all federal grants were being temporarily, I guess suspended would be the right word. So we went through, we made a few phone calls. If you'll understand the process, oftentimes we're going out and paying for work and then expecting to be reimbursed through these grants. And so we have 2 CDBG projects that are through the state, but they're federal money, and those are being paused. We have 7 other grants that have been awarded, and we're at varying levels in those projects on using those funds. So we've asked where we can to pause, because we don't want to, the whole intent behind that was that we were getting the money to come back. So we're pausing that. We also have 5 grants that we're waiting on award or in process, including one we were going to bring to you this evening, and that's why it's no longer on the agenda. A lot of city managers are emailing back and forth. We talked to an engineer today. I think everybody anticipates that this will be short-lived, that some of the major changes that our current president is looking at, specifically around DEI and also the Green New Deal, is really what's being analyzed to ensure that those are either repurposed, refocused, or removed. But anticipation is that especially the infrastructure grants will come back. They may look a little different, be called a little different. Of course, we don't know. We'll have to reapply. We would hope not. I don't know that federal government wants to do that to every community, every organization applying for those grants. A little bit up in the air right now, but we're working through that, and as we get more information, we'll act where appropriate and hopefully ensure that we can continue to do these 10+ projects. Did get an update while I was in the meeting here about South Buckeye, although not in the city. It affects our residents. It's still been waiting for a good enough stretch on weather to complete. So they were hopeful that first few weeks in January would be done. It is not done. With what looks like in the forecast to be rain, it may be pushed back again. They did open the south intersection, so James School Road and Buckeye, for travel until they are ready to pave it. So there may be people that feel like, oh, we're good to go, and then all of a sudden it'll be closed again. So those that are hearing, pass to their friends, it is not complete. There may be a shutdown as soon as they're ready to pave, waiting on weather. Neighborhood revitalization plan. I briefly spoke, I think, to most of you about this. Had a conversation with Melody, our appraiser at the county, kind of giving me a heads up that both Caney and Independence are looking to redo or amend their neighborhood revitalization plans. I'm still learning that program more so than I know. But essentially what I'm being told is they're looking towards a larger covered area in those communities and a reduction of the quantity of savings. And so essentially it seems like the plan that's going to go before the county as they get through the cities would be a 1 to 5 year 100% and a 6 to 10 year 50% applied to everything, residential, commercial. So wanted to say that out loud, get any feedback from commissioners on if you want us to approach making these same type of changes. You know, I think there's something to be said for what we've done to the mill in town, and is that, you know, good enough for these, you know, for what our current neighborhood revitalization plan has? Should we be competitive enough with some of the cities that are close by and go even further? You could look at this as they're getting competitive with us and our mill drop. Do we want to take that further? We do have some hesitation on what we're hearing the approach may be, which is just blanketing the whole city. There is an opinion out there by the AG that that's not a good idea. So I don't know that they're going to do the whole cities. They may find ways to limit that. You will, if you recall back, ours is not the whole city. There are about 5 zones. But there's some significant blocks where houses could be built, including out there in the Gibson area, where we bought property to build homes on. Just wanted to open that up. Any thoughts around trying to compete? We can also just wait and watch and see what gets pushed through at the county level, and then have some of those conversations. Any thoughts?
I think more guidance on what you just said, the AG is saying blanketing the whole city is not a good idea. And then, so what does that really mean? Is there a percent you shouldn't, 30, 40%? I mean, I think what we have now is quite a bit of the city limits. We did lower the mill levy, that's an incentive.
I'd say the locations you have are
Yeah.
incentivizing areas that are east side of town, you know, not homes there. We want infill. But, you know, there's the areas where someone might be looking to build a brand new home on a new clean lot are not necessarily in those
Yeah.
spots.
Well, that would be an individual, you know, the incentives given to the builder on the houses on North Edgewood, apparently those worked, right? So, I don't know
Yeah.
if that needs to be tweaked a tad or not, but those type incentives to a builder who's gonna sell it to somebody else is different than the individual buying a lot and building
Their own
almost
house.
like self-contracting and being the general
And that's-
contractor themselves, and that's different.
That's what we have today. I think we have 5 or 6 variations of percentages across. That's one of the reasons I'm bringing it up, is because these other communities appear to just be going 2-1, kind of following suit with the county.
I think we should wait and see what the
Yeah.
AG,
Well,
it's
there's not going to be a
Russian.
new AG opinion.
No.
This is an existing one, and Paul could probably speak to it. It doesn't really give any specific requirements other than they don't believe that. So, I mean, for that matter, you could go and highlight all city property, and it's now not the full city. So, you know, I think there's different ways to look at that. Paul, anything to add to that?
Incentivize us to get rid of some of the lots.
Yeah, I think it's an old opinion, I think 86, so it's been around for a while. My understanding from talking to colleagues is that Chanute has implemented a citywide NRP and accepted flood zone properties from their plan. I think entities around here might follow that kind of a plan as well. So, you know, I don't know. This is not legal opinion. This is more of a looking at the intent of the neighborhood revitalization plan and just doing a blanket across the city. I don't think that's what the lawmakers intended, because there are some areas that you don't need to incent.
Right.
Yeah,
for people.
You
exactly.
can't call the whole city a neighborhood.
Yeah,
Right.
calling the entire city a blighted area, you know, so that seems a little extreme to me, but that's,
And was that the intent of neighborhood revitalization was?
it's to
Some
stimulate
blighted
renovation, rehabilitation in areas that are. in
So
need.
new land, you can't call it that.
You could call Southeast Kansas
Yeah.
in need of
Right.
renovation, rehabilitation, et cetera. That's,
Yeah.
I get it.
We can wait to see what these two
I think
communities in
they
our
should do
county
that.
does and watch,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think that's the time the decision is, are we gonna step up and be as competitive there? What are the downsides, what are the pros? So we'll wait for those to officially go through, and we can look at them and come back and discuss again.
Including the incentives to go
Good.
without
Yep.
messing with the property tax. I think that's what the builders are looking for.
That's all I have.
Comments from commissioners and staff?
I have nothing.
Just one comment. At the tail end of the information provided, there was a CRS activity 510 progress report, and there's a link there, location where the active mitigation plan can be found. I went there and did a deep dive into that, and when you're talking about risk management, you're talking about protecting three things: people, and data. And this mitigation plan is an extremely well thought out and prepared document regarding things, but it's sorely missing mitigation suggestions or plans for people and data. And typically those kinds of risk management plans are written based on the Australian ANZAC ISO 31000 that was written several years ago addressing those three issues. And I have extensive materials on that I'll be willing to share with you if you care to take a look at it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to look at that, other than I think this is a requirement, progress report, if you will, that we have to produce. He wasn't privy to the creation of that. Anything specifically cybersecurity always kind of gets the hair stand up on the back of my neck. And so, yeah, I'd be happy to look at that and help me understand this further.
Okay, I'll provide you with that material and do with it as you please.
Yeah, and I did not put this together and do not know this backwards and forwards. I think Thomas did, so he could also speak to exactly what that report there is.
Yeah. I mean, it's an excellent document on things, as broad a category as you could talk about
Yep.
things.
So the state of Kansas actually has divided up itself into multiple regions, and those are regional hazard mitigation plans, and they do cover all sorts of tornadoes, earthquakes, floods, the full gambit of natural disasters, and how we can try to help alleviate the risk of those, such as specifically the flooding. So that specific report is the items that were called out in the last putting together of that, which is again handled by state county emergency managements, through the state, so we don't have a whole lot of input, I will say to that. We did attend the meetings, but There's even stuff in there that we said that, hey, this really needs to be addressed, or this is already done, because it's said complete for
I'm surprised there's nothing on there about an what the effects of an EMP on our electric grid.
So it was, those types of things were brought up in several of the meetings, but for whatever
But it's
reason.
not in the list.
I know, yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
And
We
that's-
bring them up in the meetings, it's a regional, it's done by the state, it's paid for by the state, controlled by the state, and we have a little bit of input. But the reason for that report is it's a requirement for the community rating systems, which is a flood insurance rebate. Basically, we reduce the citizens of Coffeyville's flood insurance by doing certain activities, and because we have repetitive loss properties, we fall into a category that we need to issue this report every year.
Rick Whitson talked about EMP with, at the county. It's one of the meetings we were at last year and brought that up, and it seems like this is one of those repetitive exercises, and the thought process unfortunately hasn't caught up with where we're at today. EMP, for example, cybersecurity.
Yeah.
I can say both of those types of items were brought up. Hey, where's this at? And there was, oh yeah, we can add it to it. Okay. The final draft comes out and it's not there. So.
All right. All right. Thank
Move to
you.
recess to executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel as permitted by the non-elected personnel matter exception to the Open Meetings Act as set forth in KSA 75-4319B1 to include the city attorney and city manager for a period of 20 minutes. Reconvening in the commission room at 7:47.
I'll second.
Motion is made by Commissioner Edwards, seconded by Mayor Maples, to recess to executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel as permitted by the non-elected personnel matter exception to the Open Meetings Act as set forth in KSA 75-4319B1 to include the city attorney and city manager for a period of 20 minutes to reconvene in the commission room at 7:47 p.m. Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
Mayor Maples.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Commissioner Hendricks.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Van Oster.
Aye.
We adjourn. Second.
Motion is made by Vice Mayor Van Oster, seconded by Mayor Maples to adjourn. Can I see a show of hands? Thank you.
Thank you.